when I was in the Netherlands, and this dates back to 2006, I was going through an actual dynamic chiropractic newspaper and came across this DMX thing. And at that point in time, I had been living with what I perceived to be upper cervical instability that was not amenable to any actual chiropractic treatments or any other treatments that I'd had to that point in time. And the only thing I discovered gave me relief for myself was acupressure. So basically what now I would term NIMO. And in doing that, at the 12-year point of having dealt with craniocervical junction issues and, daily neck pain and regular muscle tension headaches that would, flare up into what would be classified, I think, by the majority of medical professionals as, severe migraines that would put me out of commission for several days. But what I think the medical community fails to realize or pay attention to is the gamut of neurological symptoms that are akin to the cervicomedullary junction. So the medulla and the pons region, how when those areas are compressed and irritated, the gamut of symptoms that a person can have in addition to these so-called migraine-like headaches. And I'd been really fascinated and curious about it, but I'd had, MRIs, x-rays, that what, most chiropractors and medical professionals consider dynamic x-rays, which is literally a static flexion position, static extension position. And they would say everything looks normal. And to me, that was never enough. And when I came across this thing in dynamic chiropractic, I was shocked. I was like, this seems so logical. We should all be doing this because we're functional, we're functional practitioners. And why are we not evaluating things in function? Why static? Because I knew that my problems were not when I was static, it was when I was in function. So anyway, so I took a trip from the Netherlands to Tampa, spent about a week and a half there, had myself scanned, and within 15 minutes as we were going through the imaging, I was in shock because I saw my problem. And I'd been living with this problem for 12 years that had evaded everybody's capacity to diagnose. And I'd had, diagnoses all across the board, and none of them made sense. And so this was finally a concrete diagnosis of you have permanent ligament damage resulting in instability. And that instability, therefore, puts regular, mild, but significant compression on your brainstem region. And you have these neurological symptoms and headaches and pain. And at that point in time, I wanted to have one of these machines, and came back to the Netherlands, and what was it, 2 months later, went and paid for a machine. And fast forward now, I didn't get the machine in the Netherlands. It wasn't certified for European use, and so our only option for my wife and I and our family was to come back to North America, where the DMX or the motion X-ray would be allowed to be used and had jurisdiction for registry. And so we decided to come back to where we were from, which was Western Canada. And I'm from the same place that Jeffrey's from, but we ended up, my wife and I, back in Langley, where she's from. And we're able to acquire a motion X-ray machine or a DMX machine. And I've been using it since early 2010 now. So, but prior to that, I'd been, looking at DMXs from all over the world from colleagues that were all willing to share them with me because I was so intrigued by it. And finally, since 2010, I've been able to utilize the DMX on a daily basis here, and I've seen thousands of patients with all sorts of variations of these problems, but all with one common, nugget of familiarity, and that was, history of injury. And there doesn't have to be a major injury; it be a cumulative minor injuries. And a lot of patients, believe that they have connective tissue disorders, which they may have, but unfortunately, the way the system is rigged, very few of them, I can probably count them on one hand, have actually been diagnosed by way of genetic testing and or biopsies of tissues to validate that. So it's based on clinical presentation, and I think diagnostics should be the gold standard for diagnosing anything that we label. And unfortunately, that's not the case in medicine. And I think our profession, as far as chiropractic, and I take my hats off to you upper cervical practitioners, because I think you've really got it dialed in as to what creates a lot of problems that evade the majority of mechanical healthcare practitioners and neurological healthcare practitioners. And so I'm honored to be here talking to you today. But in the meantime, the story of why I use DMX is basically personal to me. It was the only thing that ever gave me an answer, and I've been gung-ho about it ever since then. And it turns out that no matter what walk of life or what country you're from, or what continent you reside in, the problem is the same all across the world. There's not a day that goes by that somebody from Australia or South Africa or somewhere in the States, or somewhere European country contacts me trying to find out what's wrong with them, because they've heard through the grapevine that there is a way to diagnose their chronic neurological problems that have either been labeled POTS, dysautonomia, myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, you name it. There's a whole gamut of diagnoses that these folks walk around with, but never with the concrete knowledge of what's actually causing those symptoms, because the diagnoses are literally descriptions of symptoms and not so much an actual diagnosis that's hard and pinpointed to what the actual tissue is that's causing these symptoms. So